We can all admit there's an epidemic of cherry-picking Bible verses out there. But a lot of this happens because us moderns have been trained to think of the individual books of the Bible in terms of chapters, subheadings, and verses, giving us these little bite-sized morsels that can often mean whatever we want them to mean. If you spent your early years in church settings, I'm sure you remember Bible drills, memorizing these individualized and very specific Bible verses as quick as we can and firing them off when called on to win prizes and the cheers of our fellow students. And while that's great for learning memorization skills, it's terrible for learning how to read things in context. And you know what they say, I can do all things through a Bible verse taken out of context. But most folks don't know that this whole thing with Bible chapters and verses, that's a very recent phenomenon because for most of the Bible's existence, there were no chapters, subheadings, or verses. The Byzantines attempted to divide the New Testament into something resembling chapters between the 4th and 5th centuries, but the idea didn't stick around and it didn't look anything like it does today. It wasn't until the early 10th century that the Hebrew Bible was divided into sections and paragraphs and all that stuff with the development of the Masoretic texts. Cardinal Hugo Sancticaro in the early 13th century is credited with dividing the Latin Vulgate into chapters, but most modern chapter divisions of the Bible, they didn't appear until the mid-13th century, and that's due to Stephen Langston, the Archbishop of Canterbury at the time. And a Dominican Bible scholar named Santes Pagnino may have been the first to apply verses to the New Testament in the late 15th century, but his method didn't really catch on. But it gave some folks some ideas, and a printer named Robert Estienne made an attempt at verse numbering in his mid-16th century Greek New Testament. And when the Bible was printed in French in 1553, his system caught on with verse numbers printed into the margins. And when he printed the Vulgate in 1555, that was the first Bible to integrate verses into the text. In 1557, William Whittingham used verse divisions for the first time in an English New Testament, and the first Bible to use chapters and verses was the Geneva Bible, printed in 1560. And now we have the verse numbering system that we know today. And obviously, while I think chapters and verses are good things, and they are, learning to read and memorize a Bible that way can cause some problems because it induces cherry picking. It's amazing to me how someone can read a whole paragraph made of 5 or so, sometimes 10 verses, which is about one thing, and then take a singular verse out of context and apply it out of context en masse to a whole bunch of other things. But that's not how it works. It's kind of like taking that YouTube video and just taking out that one thing, and blasting it, right? And it leads to lazy surface understanding and crazy misapplication of a lot of texts. And nothing good comes from that. So whenever you hear someone use a singular Bible verse or a leader use a verse in a certain way, always ask, how and why is this leader or this person using this verse this way? Never receive it at face value. Go back to your Bible, read the verse in context of what else is being said. This is healthy. This is what we are supposed to do. Some folks might not like you for it, but that's what we're supposed to do as readers and hearers of the text. We're to be like the Bereans, examining the scriptures daily to see if things are so. So what are some Bible verses that you know of that are often taken out of context that might not necessarily mean what people think they mean? Drop them in the comments. Hope to hear from you. God bless. See you soon.